Pay the costs or get out. That's what my manager screamed at me in front of 15 people, a whiteboard full of numbers, and a projector that still had my name on the slide. And the worst part? For a few seconds, I actually thought about paying. I work in a mid-sized office that looks impressive from the parking lot and depressing from the inside. Open space, fake plants, motivational quotes on the walls about teamwork and ownership that we all secretly used as inside jokes. My job title says Operations Coordinator. What it really means is if something goes wrong and nobody wants to touch it, it lands on my desk. My manager, Tyler, loves that part. He's the kind of guy who buys the most expensive coffee in the building but panics if someone prints in color without asking. Shiny watch, loud laugh, always too busy to answer questions until something blows up. Then suddenly he has all the time in the world to explain why it was your fault. That day started like every other Thursday. Stale pastries in the kitchen, Outlook full of red exclamation marks, Tyler walking in 10 minutes late with a phone pressed to his ear, nodding like he's negotiating a peace treaty instead of rescheduling a sales call. Grant, he snapped his fingers at me as he walked past my desk, we'll need that monthly cost breakdown ready for 3. Don't be cute with the numbers. Just show them the reality. The reality already looked bad. Corporate had been on us for months about uncontrolled operational expenses. Translation, someone in our office was burning money, and they wanted a neck to hang it on. Tyler's strategy was simple. Keep smiling upward and keep pointing downward. By lunchtime, I'd already been pulled into 2 meetings that weren't on my calendar. One was to explain to a junior what a purchase order is. The other was Tyler asking if he could expense a team-building dinner that was just him and his friends from college. It was with a client, he insisted. The receipt says karaoke bar, I pointed out. They have a private room. We talk business. Still going to get flagged, I said. It's already over the per-person limit. He gave me that look he saves for when I stop just short of lying for him, the amused, disappointed one. That's the problem with you, Grant, he said, leaning back in his chair. You're smart, but you're not flexible. Business needs flexibility. What he meant was, I want a fall guy with Excel skills. By 3 o'clock, everyone was already in the glass conference room, fidgeting with pens and staring at the stack of printed reports. Tyler liked in-person alignment for these things. He said seeing people's faces helped him take the temperature of the room. Personally, I think he just enjoyed an audience. I plugged my laptop into the projector, took a breath, and started walking them through the numbers. Utilities, maintenance, subscriptions, vendor fees. Line after line of costs, most of which I didn't approve, just tracked. Then we hit the spike. Month over month, our operational spend had jumped by almost 40%. It was all there in black and white. Miscellaneous client entertainment, ad hoc consulting, emergency contractor costs. Several of those line items had my department code attached to them. I knew why. Tyler had a habit of tagging things under whatever budget still had room when he submitted an expense. He didn't ask. He just optimized. And because I was the one who reconciled the reports, it always looked like it started with me. So you're telling me, said one of the regional directors on the call, that operations has been overspending by several $1,000s every month without prior approvals? The room went quiet. 3 people pretended to read their copies. One guy from IT stared at the table like maybe a portal would open. Tyler didn't give me a chance to answer. Exactly, he said, folding his hands on the table. Grant here is responsible for tracking and controlling those costs. That's literally his role. We've had multiple conversations about being more careful, but clearly we're still having issues. He turned to look at me then, eyebrows raised in that fake, right, buddy, expression. We had never had those conversations. What we had was a long thread of emails where I warned him this was going to happen if he kept shoving personal dinners and last-minute contractors under whatever department he felt like that day. I'd even flagged 2 of them as urgent concern. But he knew no one in that room would scroll back through 6 months of messages. "All right, Grant," the director said through the speakerphone. "Walk us through how you're going to fix this. We can't keep absorbing these overages." I felt 15 pairs of eyes on me, some sympathetic, some curious, a couple almost relieved that it wasn't them under the spotlight. I started to explain, careful, neutral, not throwing anyone under the bus, how we could tighten approvals, separate personal from client entertainment more clearly, and enforce pre-authorization for anything over a certain amount. Tyler let me talk for maybe 40 seconds. Then, out of nowhere, he slammed his hand on the table, so hard my water bottle jumped. "No," he snapped. "We're done with theory. This is simple." He pointed at the spreadsheet on the wall like it had personally offended him. "These are your costs, your codes, your responsibility. You pay the costs, or you get out. I'm not babysitting this anymore." The room froze. Someone coughed. A pen fell and rolled. On the screen, the regional director's face went from annoyed to wary. Even through bad video, you could see the shift. "Tyler," he said slowly, "let's be professional here." "I am being professional," Tyler shot back, eyes still on me. "I'm done with excuses. Either he keeps this under control or I'll find someone who can. I'm not losing my job because he can't manage a simple budget." There it was. Not even subtle. If someone's head rolled for this, it wasn't going to be his. A couple of years ago, I would have nodded, taken the hit, stayed late fixing every line, and convinced myself I was lucky to have a job at all. Rent doesn't care who yelled at you that day. Groceries don't know what your manager said in a meeting. But while he was yelling, something in me went very, very still. Not angry, not humiliated, just done. I heard my own voice before I fully decided what to say. "Then you should probably stop approving expenses with my department code on them without telling me," I said quietly. The room tilted. Tyler's eyes went wide for a split second, then narrowed. "Excuse me?" I didn't raise my voice. I didn't slam anything. "You approved 8 of the 12 over-limit charges yourself," I continued. "You used my cost center because your own budget was already blown. I have the approval trail. If we're talking about responsibility, we should at least be honest about where it starts." The IT guy suddenly found the ceiling fascinating. Someone at the far end of the table swallowed hard. The regional director cleared his throat. "Can you send me that trail after this call?" he asked. "Sure," I said. "I'll forward the emails." Tyler laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Look at you," he said. "Throwing your manager under the bus to save yourself. Real leadership material, Grant. Real team player. You know what? Fine. Do whatever you want with your little paper trail. But hear me clearly. If this doesn't get fixed by next month, you're gone. Pay the costs, or get out. I'm not repeating myself." He pushed his chair back so fast it squealed, grabbed his notebook, and walked out of the room before the call even ended. The door shut behind him with that soft, expensive click. Nobody said anything for a moment. Then one by one, they all looked back at me. "You'll send that over?" the director repeated gently. "Yeah," I said. "I'll send everything." The meeting wrapped up in a blur. People shuffled their papers, made small talk about traffic, spilled out into the hallway like nothing had happened. By the time I'd finished disconnecting the projector, the conference room was empty. I stood there alone with the faint smell of dry erase marker and cold coffee, staring at my reflection in the black screen. For the first time in 6 years, I didn't see "lucky to be here." When I looked at myself, I saw someone standing in a place that had already decided what he was worth. That was the moment something shifted. I picked up my laptop, walked back to my desk, and opened my email, not to beg, not to explain, but to start collecting every thread, every approval, every little thing Tyler assumed nobody would ever bother to line up. Because if I was going to get out, I wasn't leaving empty-handed. But that was just the beginning. The meeting ended, but the echo of Tyler's voice stayed lodged in the back of my skull for the rest of the day. People walked past my desk one by one, pretending to be busy, suddenly too absorbed in their screens to meet my eyes. In our office, that was called survival silence. Everyone knows something wrong is happening, but no one wants to be the one who says it out loud. At 4 o'clock, I heard Tyler's office door slam. He always slammed it harder than necessary, like he was trying to scare the air itself. A second later, an email popped up. Urgent. Cost documentation. Send by EOD. No please, no thanks. Just an order, like I was a soldier and he was a general. I opened the server folder and started checking expenses. Not mine, but the ones he'd been running under my code for the last 3 months. There were dinners, an air conditioning repair bill for his friend, consultations from some specialist, who, according to rumors, was his cousin. Every line felt like a tiny splinter pushed under a nail, but the real punch came around 5, when I opened a file. The overspending report Tyler had sent to the regional director, sneakily CCing a hidden address. In it, he wrote, Grant approved all questionable items despite previous warnings. I sat still for almost a full minute, not from shock. Shock had ended long ago. But from the clarity washing over me, he wasn't just dumping expenses on me. He was building a story where all of this was my fault. And then, a knock on my cubicle wall. It was Lara, one of the accountants. Quiet, always busy, honest to the bone. She placed a folder on my desk. You're looking for this, she said. I opened it. Copies of all the approvals where Tyler personally altered the codes. Dates, signatures, his handwriting in the comments. Where did you get this? I asked. She shrugged slightly. I've been watching where this is going, and I'm not going to be a witness in his little performance. Then she leaned closer and added in a whisper, He thinks the building is about to be bought out, and he's getting a promotion. No one can stop him now. I looked up at her. Bought out? Lara nodded. For 2 weeks now, people in suits have been coming through, inspecting floors. Tyler keeps saying he's the top candidate for the new management role. He lights up every time they walk in. That hit the exact spot it needed to, because I'd seen them. Neat suits, neat folders, neat smiles. But I assumed it was just an audit. Lara looked at me over her glasses. Take care of yourself, Grant. After she left, I glanced toward the glass conference room where the people in suits usually sat. They weren't there today. But on the table was a white folder with a large investment company logo. I'd noticed it yesterday when I came by with reports. I opened my browser, found their website, found the real estate acquisition contacts, and then I saw the name of the exact man who'd been in our office, the regional director. I closed the tab, stood up, and walked past Tyler's office, feeling his stare like heat behind the door. He probably thought I was going outside to breathe, the way people do when they're cornered. Instead, I went to the conference room where they'd left business cards last week, and I found one, tucked neatly under the glass tray with pens. On the back was a note. Call if you need clarifications on internal operations. I didn't know if it was left there intentionally or by accident, but I knew one thing. Tyler thought everything was already decided, and that was his mistake. I picked up the card, squeezed it, put it in my pocket, and something inside me quietly clicked. A tiny silent switch that had kept me in this role for years. That night, I stopped being the hero. I got home late, opened my laptop, logged into a personal email so Tyler wouldn't see anything in the corporate logs. For a long moment, I stared at a blank draft. Then I typed, Good evening. I would like to provide information that may influence your decision to purchase the building. Every sentence came easily, not out of spite, but because I had finally stopped carrying someone else's weight. I described the office culture. Truthfully, I described the expense shifting with evidence, attached the documents Lara had left for me. I didn't ask for anything. I didn't complain. I just put the truth on the table. And when I hit send, the silence in my apartment changed, no longer frightening, but freeing. The next day, everything looked normal. Tyler walked around the office with his bright, overconfident smile, selling his fantasy of the future, bragging about how he had practically signed the contract already. But now I didn't see him as a boss, or even as a threat. I saw him as a man who didn't realize his game was already over. By lunch, I received a response. "Thank you. We need additional information. Let's meet in person." I read the email twice, and for a moment my heart hit harder. But the second wave wasn't fear. It was calm. I looked up. Tyler was still strutting around the office with his shoulders squared. He thought everything was going according to plan. I didn't know it yet, but that decision would cost them everything. And I was starting to understand that what was coming next wouldn't be just a conversation. I didn't realize how quickly things would move until the next morning, when the building's lobby security called my desk. "There's someone here asking for you," the guard said. "Says it's regarding internal procedures." Internal procedures. That was the phrase from the email. I walked downstairs, heart steady, not excited, not afraid, just aware. The man waiting for me was the same one I'd seen touring the office 2 weeks earlier. Perfect suit, calm posture, eyes that scanned rather than looked. "Grant?" he asked. "Yes?" He shook my hand. "I'm Nathan. We'll keep this brief." He led me outside, not to a coffee shop, not to a meeting room, just to a quiet bench near the loading dock, where no one ever went, unless they were smoking or hiding from work. A place without ears. "I read your email," he said, "and I need confirmation. Everything you shared, documents, approvals, culture, accurate?" "Yes," I said. He didn't blink. "And can you verify the manager's role in these decisions?" "Yes." Another pause. Wind. The distant hum of HVAC units. "Then we're moving forward," he said. "We've had concerns for a while, but without internal insight, we couldn't act. Your information filled in the gaps." He stood, straightened his jacket. "You won't be mentioned," he added. "That's not how we operate." It was the closest thing to reassurance I'd had in months. And somehow I didn't need more. I wasn't doing this to be a hero, or a whistleblower, or some office martyr. I was doing it because I was done watching a man burn through people and then call it leadership. When I re-entered the building, Tyler was in the hallway, bragging loudly into his phone about strategic synergy and upward transitions, phrases he used when he wanted people to think he was in control of something. He turned, saw me, and gave a smug smile. "Budget report by noon," he said. "And don't mess it up this time. I've got eyes on me now." If only he knew. By lunchtime, the entire office felt different. People kept glancing toward the main conference room where Nathan and 2 other representatives were setting up laptops. Tyler practically hovered near them, laughing too loudly, offering snacks nobody wanted, talking about his vision for departmental optimization. I watched him from my desk, listened to him sell his fantasy, counted the minutes. Around 2 p.m., he finally got what he'd been waiting for, a knock on his door. "Tyler?" One of the reps, professional, neutral, dead calm. "We need you in the conference room. We're reviewing management alignment before finalizing the transition." "Management alignment?" He lit up like a chandelier. "Of course," he said, smoothing his shirt. "I've been expecting this." He walked past my desk and tapped it twice with his knuckles. "Wish me luck, Grant," he said with a wink. "Big things coming." I didn't respond, not out of pettiness, just because silence was finally the right volume. The door closed behind him, and for almost 30 minutes, the office was painfully still. Even the printers seemed to stop. People worked quietly, waiting for something. They didn't know what, but they knew it was coming. Then it happened. At first, it was nothing more than a muffled voice behind the glass, then a sharper tone, then a pause that felt like a held breath, and then silence, the kind that means something's gone wrong. When the door finally opened, Tyler stepped out, but the swagger was gone. His face was pale, his jaw was tight. He glanced around, trying to find stability, in a room full of people who suddenly weren't looking away. His eyes swept across the office, right until they landed on me. Not anger, not confusion, recognition. Like he'd just realized which piece on the chessboard he'd never bothered to pay attention to. He turned and marched back to his office, slammed the door, hard enough to make the photos on his wall rattle. A minute later, an email pinged across the entire building. Mandatory staff meeting. 4 p.m. Conference room A. Attendance required. People murmured. Chairs creaked. Someone whispered, "It's happening." At 4 p.m., the room filled fast. Nathan stood at the front. Tyler sat to the side, arms crossed, face flushed. Nathan cleared his throat. As part of the acquisition process, he began, "We've conducted an internal review of all managerial departments. Based on performance evaluations, expense handling, and leadership practices, we will be implementing several structural changes, effective immediately." A breath, a shift in the air, and then, "First, we are terminating the employment of Tyler Reynolds, effective today." Gasps. A dropped pen. Someone whispered, "Holy—" Tyler shot out of his chair. "You can't do this. You don't know what's actually going on. You've been given incomplete information, misleading statements, manipulated reports." Nathan raised a hand, calm as ever. "All findings were supported by documented evidence, Mr. Reynolds. If you wish to contest the decision, you may do so through legal channels. But our review is complete." Tyler turned toward the room, desperate for an ally. "Seriously? All of you? You're just going to sit there while they—" Then he looked at me. Really looked, and something inside him cracked. Because he knew. He finally understood. He pointed at me, voice trembling. "This is you. You did this." I didn't answer. Didn't move. Didn't blink. I didn't need to. The truth was already louder than anything I could say. Security escorted him out while the office sat in stunned silence. Papers rustled. Someone sniffled. Someone else whispered, "About time." When the door shut and the room finally exhaled, Nathan continued, "Second, we'll be restructuring operations with a new departmental lead, someone who demonstrated clarity, integrity, and accountability during this review. Someone who made it possible for us to see the real state of this office." He looked directly at me, and in that moment, something small and sharp inside me eased, like a knot I'd been carrying for years finally let go. He didn't announce my name. He didn't need to. Everyone understood where this was going. Everyone saw the shift. Everyone felt the balance change. They thought I was gone. I wasn't. And for the first time in a very, very long while, I realized the chaos wasn't mine to carry anymore. It was theirs to clean up, and my part in it wasn't over yet. They thought the building would feel tense after Tyler's exit, but the next morning when I walked through the front doors, the office felt lighter, like someone had cracked a window in a room that had been sealed for years. People looked up from their desks when I passed, not with pity, not with nerves, but with a quiet kind of recognition, a nod here, a grateful look there, a soft "morning, Grant," from someone who hadn't spoken to me in weeks. I didn't need applause. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted the air to stop feeling like punishment. Around 9, Nathan asked me to step into the big conference room, not the cramped glass box Tyler used for his daily theatrics, the large one we only use for executive reviews. There was no performance waiting for me on the other side, no stage, no audience, no raised voices, just a folder on the table and Nathan sitting with the calm of someone who already knew the outcome. "Close the door," he said. I did. He slid the folder toward me. "We're restructuring that part you already know. Operations need stability, clarity, and someone people trust. We'd like you to lead the department. Interim title first. Permanent after the transition paperwork clears." I stared at the folder, then at him. "I didn't do this to get his job," I said quietly. "And that," he replied, "is exactly why we want you to have it." No speech, no pressure, just a decision placed gently in front of me. He waited, calm, patient. "Okay," I finally said. "I'll take it." He nodded once, firmly like he'd expected that answer. Then he pointed to the side of the folder. "One more thing. The sale of the building closes today. The office will be under new management by the end of the week. We'll need your insight going forward." My insight, not my obedience, not my silence. Something in my chest settled. When the meeting ended, I walked out of that room quieter than I'd entered it. Not triumphant, not victorious, just steady. Around lunchtime, security escorted Tyler back into the building, but only to his office to collect his things. He kept his head down, a baseball cap pulled low like that could hide the weight of everything behind him. I stayed at my desk, typing up transition notes. I didn't watch him walk by, didn't stand, didn't smile. Tyler was a chapter, not a ghost. But as he passed my cubicle, he stopped. Not long. Just long enough to breathe in like he wanted to speak, but couldn't find the right shape for the words. I didn't look up. He left without finishing whatever he wanted to say. That was his ending, not mine. By the late afternoon, the office felt different again, not because of fear, but because the noise had disappeared. The meetings were shorter. The hallway chatter was calmer. Even the printers seemed to run softer. People started stopping by my desk, not to gossip, not to pry, but to ask things they hadn't asked in months. "Hey, do we still need Tyler's sign-off on vendor charges?" "No. Use the proper authorization chain." "Should we still keep those Saturday logs he made us submit?" "No. If work gets done, that's what matters." "Is it true they offered you the department?" "Let's just focus on today." Small interactions, but they built something Tyler never could. Trust. By 5, most of the office had cleared out. The sun was settling low across the parking lot when I walked into the big conference room alone, the one where Tyler thought he'd be crowned and instead got escorted out. The room was empty now, quiet, peaceful. A stack of blank notepads sat at the center of the table. The marker tray was neat for the first time in years. The chairs were evenly spaced, not shoved aside in frustration. I sat down in the chair at the head of the table, not to claim it, but to understand it. This job wasn't a throne. It was work, real work. And for the first time since I stepped into this building 6 years ago, that felt like something worth doing. As I gathered my things to leave, I noticed something wedged between the wall and the trash bin. Tyler's old nameplate, the one he used to tap with his pen when he wanted to remind everyone of who he thought he was. I picked it up, turned it over once. It felt strangely light. I placed it gently on the table, not out of anger, out of closure. Some things don't need to be kept or smashed. They just need to be put down. Outside, the sky was a soft gray blue, the kind that makes the whole world feel ironed flat and quiet. I walked to my car with a calm that didn't feel borrowed or temporary. A new email pinged on my phone. Nathan again. "Welcome aboard. More details tomorrow." I put the phone away, hands free, breath steady. This wasn't revenge. This wasn't even payback. This was balance. After years of being the man in the background, quiet, dependable, unseen, I was walking forward in a place that finally saw me clearly, and not because I fought the loudest, or because I played politics, or because I won a battle, but because I stopped carrying the weight of a man who mistook fear for leadership and power for immunity. I unlocked my car, opened the door, paused for a moment in the warm hush of evening air. For the first time in years, the day felt good, not triumphant, not dramatic, just good. And sometimes that's the best kind of ending.